Well, it's that time of year. Crazy to think we're probably only... Yeah, might get pushed back a little bit because we got started late planting, but probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 weeks at the latest. 5 to 6 weeks out of thinking about cutting beans, and if corn comes quickly, which if we stay this damn dry, corn's gonna come rather quickly. So yeah, we're not that far out from thinking about starting harvests, as scary as hot as that is. This summer just kind of flew by with everything going on. But with that in mind, it's time to start working on combines. Really, in all honesty, don't have a whole hell of a lot that either one of them needs done. The 7300 has a couple things that are a little bit more time consuming, but nothing too bad. So I got to take, what I'm going to work on today is pulling the valve stack out of the console and putting new O-rings and poppets in them. There were still rebuild kits for those valves and used parts warehouse, old stock parts warehouse. So they had a limited number. They were, I think, $54 a kit, so I bought 2 kits just to have one on the shelf, because a 525 should, actually not just a 525, but the 25, 35, 45, the 7300, actually it might be more than that, because I think they used that same valve stack on pretty much on the vast majority of the combine, from the 525 on up through the series. If not, they look damn similar, because even the valves in the 8700 look similar to what's in it. But anyway, I got 2 rebuild kits just to throw one on the shelf, so if we ever need it, it's there. And so I got to get that done. That's today's project. And then I got the hole down here in the base of this elevator, right there. I've got duct tape over it because I put that there to cut wheat, but just a little, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say little, it's kind of a, but right there where the tube transitions into the boot, there's a hole. So I want to pull this elevator off to fix that. And then I got new bearings for basically starting here. Well, I guess it'd be starting here and working all the way up to the top and over the other side of the grain tank. So, and then the bearing on the other side of this auger. I don't know if I'm going to go through and do all of them. I don't know if I might just do the ones down here and wait to do the ones up top. We'll see how things pan out. But I got them if I need them. So, and the weird part is, all these bearings look virtually identical, except when you pull them up in the parts book, I think it showed this one, and I think one of them up there. There was 3 bearings that were different, because there's 10 bearings total. There's 7 that were one and 3 that were the other. But I'll be damned if they don't all look the same. And I never did pull them out of the box to see what's different. But anyhow, so that's gonna be an interesting project, getting that little jump conveyor out of there. Because you got to slack this chain, pull this auger, pull that auger, and then once your augers are out, it just comes off. But like most things on a combine this old, a lot easier said than done. The other thing I want to do is, for beans, I have, at least I think they're for this, I have the perforated elevator screen. So it'd be here. I got the perforated elevator door. don't have, they made a perforated cover for the bottom of the auger here. There's one on the 525, but I don't think I got the one that goes with this. That door right there, because you could replace, or you could swap them. But I'm pretty sure I got the perforated elevator door there. I'm pretty sure I have this cover perforated. I'm pretty sure I have the perforated tailings cover. I gotta go look, but I want to do a better job of, I want to change some things for setting up for beans so I can get a cleaner sample, because last year I kind of had an issue getting a clean sample out of it. It wasn't terrible, but I could do better. So I want to see if I can put the perforated covers on the elevators, and I'm going to go one sprocket bigger on the cylinder this year and slow the cylinder down. I think it would end up being about 100 RPM, because the last year, especially if the beans got below about I seem to have the most issues when it dropped under like 11.5%. It starts splitting them, and no matter I've tried I tried cleaning it up by opening up the concave, and that didn't do anything. So I want to just baseline slow the cylinder down some. So, and then obviously I got to put the chopper back on and change the oil and fuel filters. But other than that, I mean, it's not a lot to do. It's just going to be time-consuming shit. So, but first things first, we got to get that valve stack off, because it drains right back to tank. We have to, well, first things first, we got to get the pressure off the hydraulic system. So I'm going to set the feeder house down on the lock, and that should be the only thing that's got pressure in the hydraulic system right now, because the variable speed's all the way back if the feeder house is down. But I want to leave the feeder house as high up as I can, leave some oil in the cylinder, because that's that much less oil we got to drain out of the reservoir, because the circuit on this drains right back to tank, so you can't pull the valve stack out without losing all your oil if you don't drain the tank. So that's going to be where we start. Okay, I got all the oil drained out, and now comes the fun part, because we have the proverbial 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound box. Although it's not actually as bad as it looks. Getting the lines unhooked is the worst part of it, but since they're only single acting valves, so this is incoming pressure, this is your return, and then this is for header height, or not header height, yeah, real height. And then you got variable speed and header lift, right? Oh, I lied. They're backwards. Okay, that makes more sense. I forgot, just because the levers are in order on the dash, they got them sleeved. So this one is header lift, and then the center one is variable speed, and then the small guy there is real lift. I was wondering why the hell that line was so small. Makes sense now. So we got to get these pins out so we can disconnect the levers, and that one's appears to be stuck, so it could be an issue. And then unhook all the lines, and then I should just have to depending on how difficult some of this wants to be. You should just have to undo this bolt, and then there's two that come in from the inside of the console, and then this should, it's been a while since we did it on a 525, but this should come out as a block. And then there should be, I think, 3 or 4 bolts in a triangle that actually hold the stack together. So fun stuff. I think I got all the tools I need. And when I put this back together, I'm gonna, oh hey, that one's loose. When I put this back together, I'm gonna get all these guys. Oh, that one's loose too. And that one's loose. All those jam nuts are loose. That would explain why none of them are in line. So I'm gonna get them jam nuts tight so that they're actually in line like they're supposed to be. But they do have to be loose because you got to turn them. They got to be loose while you're taking it out, because you got to turn them slightly to get the pins out. Yeah, there is no resistance on that guy whatsoever, which is the variable speed, which is why I'm the whole reason why I'm taking all this apart, because the variable speed, for a while you really only noticed it going down the road, but when I was cutting wheat, it was to the point where it was slowing itself down just going through the field, and that was annoying, especially when you're trying to keep the machine full and it keeps bleeding off speed. This guy hopefully is not too stuck, but it is stuck. I might need some different pliers. Okay, I got all 3 pins out, but one thing I forgot to mention I did, just in case anybody's ever doing this on another 7300, I dropped the tack cable or the speedometer cable down, because that goes right up between these hoses up to speedo drive, so I just unhooked it and shoved it down to get it out of the way. So now I'm gonna do our return line here, get it out the way. It's gonna be nice and hard because been on here for a while. All the hydraulic hoses on this we redid a long time, or well, shouldn't say a long time ago. I haven't had this thing that terribly long, but all the hoses on this have been redone. All the sticky spots busted loose here. We have movement. There we go. And we'll take him and stuff it up out of the way here. Put our clamp on there. And now we'll get busted loose. I need some stubbies. I'm gonna need some stubbies. No matter how many wrenches you bring, you always need more. In the garage. Nice thing about all this is these lines are all undercover and the weather can't really get to them, so you're not dealing with any issues of tube nuts being rusted on the lines and twisting lines and all that fun jazz. Because that's always fun. And that little guy back in there, which I do not have the right size wrench for either. That looks like a 5/8 maybe. Okay, everything's unhooked. In the process of doing all this, I don't know what made me do it, but this steel line comes down. This is actually the line that goes to the valve for the header height. And I don't know why, I just so happened to wiggle it, and I'm like, man, this moves kind of easy. So I looked up in here where it goes, and there's a little valve in here that works the automatic header height, and I wiggled it and the fitting was turning. There's a O-ring boss to JIC port adapter in the bottom of the valve, and that port adapter was loose. So, and in the process of doing that, I also found a hose clamp that was not super duper loose, but was loose, which explains where some of my oil is coming from down here. Is probably both them places. So hopefully we cleared up 2 little hydraulic weeps. I dropped this line down out of the way so that I got room to take the valve up and out and avoid all the lines down here at the bottom. So I was going to drop that anyhow, but when I go to put it back in, we'll spin that port adapter out and put a new O-ring on it and put it back in and tighten it so that it's, you know, tight. So now what I got to do, and when I'm trying to decide if it's going to be easier or not, I got 2 options. I can either pull this bolt and try to slide the valve stack out of the bracket, or I can pull these 2 bolts right there, and that'll take the bracket out with it. And I'm almost leaning towards pulling the 2 bolts here. That way I'm not trying to fight that thing in a sandwich. And they're not super duper fun to get to, but they're not terrible either. And then the 2 on the inside are threaded into the valve block, so those are easy. I think I'm just going to pull those. I think it'd make my life easier, rather than, because if I leave the bracket, you got to get the valve back this far. If you don't take the bracket out, you've only got to, you can get it loose and snake it out. So I think that's what I might do. Okay, now you got all sorts of room in there. I just took I got it out, or I got the 2 bolts on. It's like, why don't you just take the bracket all the way off, dumbass? That's what it did. So here's what we got. And all these, pretty much any valve, unless it's some sort of high performance exotic something or other, all they have in them for seals is O-rings. So when the O-rings are new, you should have drag on the valves. This is the only one, and obviously you can't tell because it's on camera, but this one, which would be for the real height, which is going to be the one that gets used the least, this is the only one that's got any drag on the valve spool. These two are just nothing. And the ground speed is the one that obviously is the one that's creeping back, and the header height doesn't, I mean, you're moving the head so much in the field, you don't really notice it. But if you let the combine sit overnight, the head will creep down. So it does weep. But anyway, I'm going to turn this thing upside down in a drain pan and let it drain out and go eat some lunch. And then we'll come back when it's nice and not oily and tear it apart. Okay, they're all drained out. I put them in the solvent tank and cleaned off everything I could on the outside. I'll have to do more once we get it apart. And then I took a number stamp and numbered them in the order they go in, just to make sure everything goes back the way it's supposed to. These 2 valves should actually be identical. It should just be this guy that's different, but still put them back in the same order. So there's just these 3 bolts. The end caps are just manifolds and to keep the valve stacked together, and then you got the valves themselves. So the only thing you're going to have in here is these 3 O-rings, and then, oops, that went awful quick. So you got 3 O-rings here, and then there'll be a copper washer on there, which I don't think is in the kit, but that's okay because that plug doesn't need to come out. That's just there for machine. They had to machine a port down through there, and that's just to plug the machine port. And then that guy is going to have these O-rings here, and there'll be O-rings throughout. Well, there'll probably just be one up here. Yeah, there should be an O-ring on either side. And then just kind of the same on down the line. And all this guy is it's got your detents in it for when you slap it into float for the header height. Okay, so we're all disassembled and cleaned up here. This is the actual valve spool itself. That looks really good. I don't see any scarring or anything on it. Chrome's still in good shape. There's no cuts, no grooves. And then all this is for the load holding. Same deal. I don't see anything scarred up, marred up. The kit has a new poppet in it, so this piece right here actually gets replaced. The only thing I saw that was out of the ordinary was this O-ring here, which I don't, yeah, it should, yeah, you can kind of see, I think it kind of shows up how chattered up it is right there on that side, and then you see that side's round. That was in that groove right there, which is probably why, I bet it was probably bypassing oil, and that might be why the head would creep down over time. So, but these are the two kits I got. They both been around for a minute. That one's got the WM globe on it, so that's probably late 70s, early 80s, really early 80s. And then this one's the WFE logo, so that's probably mid 80s. But this one's one's old enough. It's the pick ticket's a punch card. It's got all your little all your little punch marks in it, and they would stick that in a machine and they would read it and tell them what to do. But I think we'll use the newer one. You could order the kits. They came up two ways. You could either order them. Why they would do it this way, I don't know. You could order them for each individual valve, or they gave a part number, you could buy the whole valve stack. But if you got the part number that orders for the whole valve stack, then there's like 4 or 5 individual little baggies in there, and each one's for a different valve. So we want those are probably the O-rings. Yeah, those got to be the ones that go in between the stacks. So the one we want is which is the one that we want. Is there a number? Yeah, none of that crap adds up with the numbers that are on the thing. Okay, let me consult parts book and see if they give any indication as to what's what here. That one is clearly the O-rings that go in between the valves, so that one's easy, but let's see if I can figure the rest of these out. Okay, I got it sorted out. So the numbers that are on these bags don't show up in AGCO parts book. At least, maybe if I had a hard copy parts book for the combine, which I don't. All I've got for this one's the operator's manual, and possibly, I can't remember if I got the service manual for this one or not, but either way, that might be the original Oliver or White part number, and the AGCO parts book has the superseded part or superseded new part number. But either way, I can't find that number, so I didn't know. It doesn't help me tell which is which. But after I got to looking, this one's easy because the load holding poppet has a bigger shank on this one than these other two. they're smaller. So, and it didn't help that I was counting the O-rings, and it takes 5 O-rings to put this valve back together, minus the 3 in the sandwich, and the kit only had 4. Well, they shorted the one that goes on this plug. They had the 2 for this, they had the 2 that seal up the valve spool, and they had, oh yeah, that's 4. They had the 2 for this and the 2 for the valve spool. They didn't have the one for this. So, but we had one. So, but with that being said, we can go ahead and put this guy back together, because that's really all it takes to do this, is clean it up, make sure nothing's screwed up, and then we can put him out of the way and put him in there. Although I just noticed that could be a slight problem. Well, I guess it's getting the old poppet put back in it, because that plastic piece kind of needs to be that size in order for it to work right. Interesting. Makes me wonder if the other kit nope, the other kit's got the small one too. Huh. Well, luckily there's nothing wrong with this one. These guys, now this one ain't gonna be so bad. The one that's buried up in here is gonna be fun. Gonna be real fun, because the seal groove is right about here. Wouldn't be so bad if you had more room, but you get one finger in there and that's about, oh. Hot damn. We're in business. grease in there because I rubbed most of it off. Now you got to get the detents back on like so. And then you can slide this guy back in. And that can go back in. And this can go back in. And there's one valve done. And now you've actually got resistance on the valve spool when you try to turn it, so that means we've actually got a decent seal again. So I'll go ahead and get these other two done, and then we'll put it all back together. Okay, all the valves are put back together. Nothing out of the ordinary other than a few chafed O-rings, which is something you would expect on a valve stack this old that has probably never been out of that combine since 1972 when it was put in. At least I didn't see any signs of it. I was the one that cracked all the paint on the fittings to get everything out, so pretty good indicator they'd never been apart. But I took all the port adapters out, put new ball O-rings on those. I mean, everything in there is new. The two poppets, load holding poppets for these two were correct, so these got new poppets in them. This one still has the original one in it. I'm going to keep the old ones because it doesn't appear that there's really a whole lot wrong with them, if anything's wrong with them. And you never know, you might run into it, oh shit, someday and not be able to get those, and you got a good one laying around. So, but with that being said, we're ready to go back together. It'd be nice if you could stack these guys up, like stand the bolts up and then stack them up, but they didn't do it that way. You gotta the recesses for the O-rings are on the wrong side, so you got to start with this side and work your way up. I'm kind of surprised that they don't have, on a lot of valve stacks like this, they'll have steel backup rings that are the size of the ID of the O-ring, and then those steel backup rings will go in there so that something stupid can't happen and you suck the O-ring into the port. But apparently they decided they didn't need that on this. And then on the end plate here, they had O-rings for this plug, and for some reason they didn't put one for that plug or this port adapter. But this is your pressure relief valve that sets your system pressure. So that's a relief valve cartridge that's about yay long. But that had an O-ring and then an O-ring and a backup ring back in here. Now, I'm going to put this back together with a ratchet. That way we can feel our way into it. You want to try to pull it down as square as you can. You don't want to just run them all home right away individually. That way you pull the O-rings down even. It'd be nice to have something to hold this in, but there's no real good way to get it in a vise. I don't really want to clamp it because that kind of defeats the purpose of trying to draw the bolts down. Okay, there we go. So we can go ahead and, before, you can just grab onto these guys and turn them by hand. You ain't doing that now. So we can go ahead and slap this boy back in and get the combine mobile again. Okay, valve stack's back in. I had Dad help me get that back in there. It takes two guys because one of you's got to be inside the cab and the other one's got to be out here on the ladder. But before I lift this steel line back up, this support adapter I was telling you about was loose, and it goes right there. Right where that one, oh wait, no. Yeah, right there. So put a new O-ring on it just to make sure. This one looks like it's a little chafed up from being loose. How it got loose, I don't know, because I've never had a wrench on that thing since I've owned it. But get that loose, and then that hose clamp's loose. I got to get a ratchet to tighten that because the nut driver is too long, and hopefully that takes care of some of the oil leak. But so I'm gonna get this back together real quick, then we can finish hooking up lines up there. Alright, so everything's got to go back on in the reverse order that you took it apart, because these things are built like ogres and onions. They're built in layers. I think I put my wrench back that I needed for that one. Damn it! Yes, I did. I can use that one. Going back together is always so much faster than coming apart, because A, you got all your tools around, B, you know what order everything's got to happen in. And if you had anything that came apart hard, you've already done the hard part and got everything freed up. He thinks that line's a little tweaked. You shouldn't have to pull on it that hard to get it on there, and see if I can bend it a little bit. So I left it loose at the bottom so that I wouldn't be fighting it at the top. So. But it's like right here at the fitting, it's like it's got a kink in it, and it should just be straight. So let's get it a little tight here. Give it a little bit more natural line to it. Tightened up on the bottom, and then this line here, we have to go right here. So which way did it go? Maybe that's why this one had the kink in it. I don't know, it can't be, because this one's got that whoop-de-doo in it to give clearance for that. So this one must be supposed to be bent a little bit more yet. Go. That looks a little bit more natural. It's the thing about working on this stuff sometimes, just because you took it apart that way doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it belongs. But it makes a whole lot more sense with that bend in it for this line to be coming here rather than having this thing laid over here hard. Okay, now we can hook up our levers. Start here in the back. Alright, all the lines are hooked up. Valves are hooked back up to the levers. All the levers are adjusted so that they are in line now. And all the jam nuts are actually tight, so they can't just turn in there willy-nilly wherever they want to go like they were. I got the steel line tightened up down here. I got the hose clamp tightened up. I tightened that clamp, that clamp, that clamp. So all I got left to do is dump oil back in it and fire it up and check it for leaks, which hopefully we ain't got none. All right, I got oil back in the reservoir. Nothing to it but to do it. Now we got to get all the air out of the system. Fortunately, I can't see the damn variable speed pulley from here, but you can feel it. Take some oil out of the reservoir. I wonder if I put too much oil in the damn thing. I didn't even think about the fact that I had the feeder house up. But I also figured on the fact that I lost some oil. Well, shit. I guess I have to drain a little bit out. Okay, I got the oil debacle sorted out. Went over everything, checked it for leaks. Everything looks good in that respect. So about the only thing we got to do is take it down the road real quick and see if it stays at speed or if it still creeps back on me. So, I really need to do something different as far as a mag mount goes, because this one's kind of a pain to adjust sometimes.
bit more annoying than having to keep bumping your variable speed to keep your speed constant. Not just going down the road, but especially in the field, because you're trying to keep the machine loaded up so it keeps threshing good. And you keep slowing down, speeding up, slowing down, speeding up. Well, the other thing I'm going to do, we're going to leave the feeder house sitting right about there. Because before, if you ran the feeder house all the way up and had it pegged, apparently that would like pressurize the header system, and whatever was leaking inside of the valve couldn't leak back because it must have been under pressure. But if you had it anywhere not all the way up, in a day it would seep down and sit on the ground. You never noticed it when you're running the machine, so it didn't really matter, but I want to know if that problem's solved too. So leave the feeder house part way down. We'll come up here in the morning and it'll either be sitting on the ground or it'll be where I left it. So anyhow, but that's good. That job needed to get done. And hopefully I fixed 2 little oil leaks while we're at it with finding that loose hose clamp and that loose fitting. In the morning before I start working on that elevator, I'll bring this thing, or take this thing down and open this side up and power wash it and blow all the oil and stuff off of it and clean up the mess that we just made, get all the handprints and everything off of it. And then we'll start cutting bearings and all that fun stuff to get that little jump elevator off. So that will be tomorrow's project. So I guess that's it for this one, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.